What is up, everybody? CP and SJ with you for another week of Every Day We're Covering, where we talk the world of sports, wagering, and having a good time. And we've got a lot to talk about after the championship weekend wound down for conference college football play, and now the college football playoff field has been set. So plenty to dive into. SJ, turned out to be a pretty entertaining weekend as far as watching the football. Our picks went south, but that also meant that the football was more fun to watch, I think, the way it played out, and there definitely was some surprises.
Yeah, and then, I mean, maybe a little bit of a surprise the bad way, too, at least in a couple of those games. And not necessarily just for the plays, but I guess how the teams performed, at least in a couple instances, was left a little bit desired. But as we find out now, it didn't end up hurting anybody after all. So I guess go ahead and get blown out. It won't affect you if you're a certain school or in a certain group of teams.
Yeah, if you're in a certain conference, it works out for you just fine. So we'll dive into all that here coming up. As we get rolling, we always like to talk about what's fueling us through the weekend as well, and what we're liking to sip on. SJ, what do you got this week?
Well, I was able to find something, at least to me, pretty unique. All the way to the East Coast I went for this one. Not physically, but that's where it came from. At least so the packaging says, so I'll go with it. This Evil Twin Brewing makes this Christmas snow salad. So it's speaking to my sour preference. But it's also, I guess, has pineapple, cherry, pecan, walnut, kind of like whipped cream. I guess maybe it's some East Coast thing. People make Christmas snow salad. I don't know. I don't spend too much time out there, nor do I plan to. But I mean, it's actually pretty good. Just like I don't know. It tastes like similar a lot of sours I've had before, but in a good way. I guess distributed by from some place in North Haven, but I guess the brewery's right out of New York City. So Evil Twin Brewing Christmas snow salad. 6.5 ABV, so pretty decent kick too.
All right, yeah, nice. Something a little different there, mixing it up for sure. I'm going to be a little boring because I think we may have even already mentioned this one before, but I went to go track it down because I thought it was so good the first time I tried it. I had to have a few just hanging around the house. So the wife had to go track down some stuff at the store last night. I was like, hey, if you see this, pick this up for me. I'm going to give another shout out to the folks at Modelo there for the Noche Especial. It's just a good smooth beer. Nothing fancy, I guess. It's not like a weird thing that's going to be like, oh, this is revolutionary. It's not anything. It's just basically just a good.
It might be revelation. It might give you some revelations after a few of them. But yeah. I mean, the thing I liked about it is just like, usually when you get these seasonal ones like this one, I maybe have a couple, and then you're like, I mean, not saying, whatever, if you want to, you don't have to, but you can drink several of these, and it's just like you can keep them coming. Some of these unique or seasonal things, it's like after a while your stomach's like, nah, that's enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I had told a coworker about this, the Noche Especial, and he's like, oh, that sounds interesting. I might try that. So immediately that night he went home, he sent me a text. He's like, oh yeah, I could see me drinking a few of these. And it's like, yep. And he's like, yeah, I had a few before I went to bed. They're good enough to do that. So yeah, it's definitely a good sessionable kind of seasonal beer. I enjoy it. If you like amber and you like just a little bit of that kind of like roasted malt flavor, you're gonna love it. So I would recommend going and giving it a try. All right, that's what we've got pouring down the glasses here today. Needed that for a number of reasons, and so we'll dive right into that. All kinds of things going on in the college football world. We'll start with the games, get the conference championship stuff out of the way here first. Like I said, our picks, not good, but some of them...
Thankful for the unders.
Yeah, thankful for the unders. There were a couple that were close, so I'm not going to say it was like a total we're just idiots, but we're definitely a couple of games that went close and just didn't go our way. But the ones we had early on to start off, kind of a palate appetizer, so to speak, begin the weekend, were the games out in the Mountain West and then also in the American. Had Tulane getting 2.5, and they came through. They win the game 34-21, so that was a nice way to start the weekend as they beat North Texas. Get me a little victory there. Thought they played well, and of course now they've earned their way into the college football playoff as well, so congratulations there to them. There's a nice little side story I'll touch on that here in a bit. And then you had that game between UNLV and Boise State. We're looking for UNLV to finally get over the hump there against the Broncos. Couldn't quite do it. They were getting 38-21 ended up being the final. So it's not necessarily like they got blown out, but they weren't really in the game either. You didn't think they were going to win it. They got down by a couple of scores, and that's kind of where it hung around for a good chunk of the game. So a little disappointing on that front. I thought that one might be a little more entertaining for sure, SJ.
Yeah, that's what we were, obviously looking ahead, thought that. And this was, I know it was technically an away game, but I didn't think that factored in too much for the fact that it's a common like opponent. So to me, that wasn't it. It was, you lose by 17, so you can't say, just one or two things. But I do think there's at least a couple of coaching decisions that make you scratch your head a little bit. And the one in particular was there in the second half. You cut it to 7, then you're still within like a couple scores there. And 4th and 2, and you're kind of backed up. But at that point, you're not really stopping Boise. They're going. It's back and forth. It's a shootout. This is a track meet. So you got to score it. And in 4th and 2, and your offense had played fairly well. I think you got to take a chance there. And at that point, when they punted it, I was like, that's kind of it because. And then Boise goes down and scores on the next drive, of course, too. But that was, to me, that was like, I guess, a glaring thing. There was several coaching decisions where it's like didn't have a good feel for the game, and I don't know if. I guess I followed, I obviously know the name, Dan Mullen and all that stuff, but I don't know if game management and those type of decisions have been like a thing for him because I definitely didn't follow Florida too close when he was there just because didn't have a reason to. And then Mississippi State, who knows what happens there. Mm-hmm. But at least in this instance, I don't know if it's a new thing or who knows what it was. But I kind of question those decisions in a conference championship game. It seems that little odd. And a team that, it's like, man, we haven't had – this team's kind of had our number. We got to take a chance here. We got to do something out of the ordinary. We got to go for it. And so to me, that's always kind of like it makes you feel a little bit. I can't get behind that when someone's playing. What's the damn saying? Playing not to lose or whatever. That's that doesn't get you very very many accolades. So didn't play as well as I thought, obviously, but the account. But I think there was a moment in time where they could have at least hung in there, but weren't able to do it. And that's. Not all in the coaching, but I think, at least from my perspective, that played a significant part in it.
Yeah, you're right. I think in those moments you got to kind of roll the dice a little bit once in a while and take those chances. Like you said, last game of the year, don't hold anything back. Exactly. But they held it back and it didn't play out.
You can't be too crazy, but when you have a chance, you got to, like you said, you got to roll the dice a little bit.
Yeah, and it just didn't work out for him there. So moving on to the Power 4 games, we started the day with a big disappointment. I'll admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong. I thought BYU was going to be able to put up a fight against Texas Tech. Started the game well. They scored first, opening drive that went down the field and scored, and you thought, hey, maybe they've figured something out here. That was the big problem the first time is they couldn't move the ball. Well, it kind of shut off after that. Texas Tech really shut them down offensively the rest of the way. And I'm going to give a lot of credit to Texas Tech because they look like a pretty damn well-rounded team. They do a lot of things right. Their defensive front is way better, I think, than anybody thought that they would be this year and just continue to seem to get better. Linebackers are really good. They play smart. They just kind of took it to them there the rest of the way. And it wasn't I don't know. I think if they had like even a more explosive offense, it would have been a game that went even more south. But, they just do the right things, and they seem like a pretty tough team. I think they're going to be a tough out come playoff, and I was disappointed, though, with BYU's effort to try to at least keep it close.
It was almost too similar to the first game. Without, I guess when you look at the total here, what they ended up with. But as far as maybe not as many obvious mistakes, but then you end up with 4 turnovers in the end. I don't think those weren't early though. Texas Tech built their lead over time, kind of whatever you call it, kind of avalanche there at the end, and they just kind of they were taking BYU did take chances, and it kind of backfired on them. So I guess that's the other side of the coin there as we compare it to the UNLV game we just talked about. But they're holding them to field goals. They were hanging around. It's just that you got to put some offense up too, and if you don't, eventually it's going to get away from you, and that's what it did. But I think, I'm not. The fact that Texas Tech won isn't all that shocking. That's why we took 12.5. That was a huge number, and I think it could have been more competitive. But maybe it's one of those styles things where they just don't match up well. Mm-hmm. Like they might be as good of a team as them, like athletically and on paper and against common opponents and all that type of stuff, but they just do. what their strengths and your weaknesses just don't match up well, and it just doesn't look good in the end.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how it definitely played out. I mean, yeah, it was only a 6-point game at halftime, so it wasn't like, you thought it was over from the get-go. It just, yeah, like you said, it was an avalanche kind of situation. Had a couple of back-to-back possessions that were real bad. I think a bad punt situation. Then they had a interception right after that. I mean, just, yeah, things kind of just went south in a hurry, and they couldn't find a way to catch up. And you knew that they just didn't have the offense to be able to keep up the rest of the way. So disappointing there. Thought they would at least cover. But not the case. Going then to the SEC championship game, much the same, but not the way we thought it would be again. Georgia controlled it pretty much from the outset, and they win it. Luckily, I did hit on the unders. 35 ends up being the total. I was looking for under 47.5. You went ahead with Bama to win it, getting 2.5, and I agreed with you. I mean, I thought they won the first game. Why can't they win the next one? But, boy, they offensively, they look putrid in that game.
It was a tough watch, and I mean, tried to do as much as possible just because we had a little bit invested in it. But it wasn't competitive at any point.
Mm-hmm.
That's where kind of more of the scratch your head thing. It's not that they lost because it was, that's not even like, it's a neutral site, so that's most of it. But that's not even like a three. There was no even like 3-point better team advantage. That's like standard of any book. It was like either team could win this, and that's what we said too. We thought it wasn't that surprising. Just Alabama thought maybe they could, kind of repeat the same formula, but they just couldn't do anything. I mean, it was at the end when they're trying to get down to just get like a pride touchdown so they don't get shut out, or they're doing like freaking, hooking laterals like that. I don't even know if that was the play call, but it ended up working out. It was just, it was just embarrassing. I mean, for a team of that, I guess what people think of them to have to kind of resort to those measures to get a late touchdown and avoid a shutout is kind of speaks to the whole the whole scenario there of that game at least. But as we alluded to, it doesn't even affect you. So at least this team, they still get into the big dance there, and it's no big deal. Just business as usual. Go ahead and get beat by 21 in a 2.5 point game, and then you're still good to go for the big. But you got to imagine that you can't have much confidence in this team going forward after that performance. I don't care who they're playing and they're playing a team that's beat them already as they match up in the playoffs. So
yeah, it's just like one of those. Yeah, what can you do? Because you're just waiting for something to happen, and like they couldn't run the ball at all. And then of course you let a defense like Georgia figure that out. I mean, they're going to sit back and make it difficult to try to get open on the other end of it, and that's what they did. And they just played a good, well-rounded game. I guess I was even more surprised at times too how easy the Georgia offense made it look a couple of drives, because they went right down the field a couple of times with big chunk runs, and that was something they couldn't even do the week before against Georgia Tech, so I didn't see that coming, and to do it against, like you said, in Alabama is just even more surprising in that moment, I guess.
Well, they didn't even dress it up either. It was just between the tackles, like old school. I wouldn't be surprised if they called it a freaking cross buck. Yeah. Like they just, they went old school, and we're just running it down your throat and getting 7-8 yards of carry. I guess I agree with you on that. That was surprising, but it just, I don't know, the lack of you can't even judge it because you don't know inside someone's brain and what they're thinking. But it's just like it seemed like there was like some motivation or focus lacking, which is very odd.
Yeah,
and against a team that you had big stakes before, and I'm guessing they don't necessarily like each other, and then you're just like flat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it to me it even looked like that way on the sidelines, like from the coaching staff too. They're just kind of glazing the eye, like they didn't like they weren't prepared, or I don't know. It was strange.
I thought this game was next week.
Yeah, we're playing today. What the hell? So weird. Yeah, and of course, so we kind of go 1-1 in that one. At least get a win on the under on that game. And then we go to the evening session. I'll go to the ACC game first. Ends up going to overtime, which at one point didn't look like was going to be possible at all. They're down 10 with like 5 minutes to play. Somehow Virginia finds a way to get this thing into the extra session. And at that point, of course, you kind of think, man, they got the momentum. There's no way they're going to lose this thing, right? And it takes a 4th down play for Duke to score. And then, of course, Virginia tries to get a little fancy with a trick play, and they end up throwing an interception right away to start the drive. Like, I don't know where that call came from and why you make that decision at that point. I mean, I guess if that's like, to me, if that's a third down, yeah, okay, maybe I'm okay with it. But just come out of the gate with that one and it loses the game for you. Super disappointing.
Yeah, that's like you're a middle school kid, what they pick on, on the Xbox. That's the type of play call. It made no sense on first downs. Like, you have time. Like, it's just, there's no game clock.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a play clock, but other than that, it's like just try to get something that works for you. And I'm with you if it was like third down, or maybe you get like you run on a first down, get a holding penalty, and then you get a sack and you're backed up, and you got to get a chunk, there. And but that wasn't the case. Just tried to outthink themselves, and they ended up they did that. I mean, they overthought it and ended up losing the game. But the rally, you got to credit that. But I don't know. I just same thing there. Just it didn't look like they just weren't hitting on all cylinders. And I know the quarterback seemed a little banged up. I don't know if he had an injury coming in or just got dinged up in that game, because I was focused more on the Big Ten game. Honestly, just kind of side eye in that one. But it just. You can't expect to, we're just in the last 5 minutes, we're going to turn it on and then go ahead and do that. And I mean, that's usually the result you get when you try to, kind of do like that and just sleepwalking and just going through the motions, thinking they were just going to show up and beat this team because they'd done it before.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's what it kind of seemed like too. I mean, when you can go down the field the way they did at the end of the game, it's like, well, what the hell were you doing before? Like, what was the problem? I mean, I'll give Duke credit. They were, they did a good job up front. They got a lot of pressure on Morris and made it difficult throughout the game. I was kind of, looking back and forth and watching the other one too. But, and he took a couple of hits early, and I think that made a difference. He was walking around a little gingerly a couple times, so I don't think he felt 100%. But, yeah, I mean, you just they were always like on the edge of doing something great, and they just could never put it together on a drive for some reason, and that's ultimately what ends up costing them. So, wild situation. Of course, I'd never seen that either, where you'd gotten the penalty during the defensive part of your possession, and then it affected your starting point on the overtime possession. I'd never seen that happen before, I don't think. So, I mean, I wonder if that didn't play into their minds, like with do they call that play if they're not that far back, which to me is still stupid. Like, you still have to go 10 yards. Who cares? Like, just pick up another first down. That's all it is. And I think they made it out to be a bigger deal than it needed to be.
Yeah, you don't need a touchdown on the first play. You got to just get a first down and get your new set of downs. But I think it seems like a lot of people approach overtime that way, even outside of this game, in the college game, that is, at least, where you get the possession. It's like they're trying to score with every play. You can still get a first. In some cases, you can get 2 first downs, depending on how the drive plays out, But that's, like I said, just going for it all on the first play. That usually doesn't work out too well.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, we miss on the pick there because I had Virginia, but we did get the total under there, SJ's pick, so that was nice. 47, 27-20 ends up being the final. 57.5 was the number, so at least that was another one of our wins out of the minimum ones we had here the weekend. We both were wrong on the other game, the Big Ten game, and I think, a good chunk of the country was as well. But Ohio State was laying 4.5, depending on where you got it leading up to game time. I think maybe it even crept a little lower than that in some locations. It might have got to like 3.5 in some places, I think, before the game kicked off. But a lot of people, I'm certain, thought that Ohio State would find a way to win this game, and they do not. 13-10, Indiana wins the game. They become Big Ten champions for the first time ever. I guess obviously at this point I have to be sold on what Indiana's done and put together, and what Cignetti's been able to do with that program. It's a hell of a win, and they did it in a pretty complete fashion. I mean, granted, Ohio State missed a chip shot field goal that should have tied the game, but Indiana made the plays on both sides of the ball throughout to compete and to ultimately win.
Yeah, you got to say that they. Everything, it wasn't anything like, oh, Ohio State got screwed, or, this was, they got should have won this, Indiana was definitely deserved that victory all the way around. But even those who, anybody doing like a victory lap, being like, oh yeah, I knew Indiana to win, I guarantee they didn't have a 13-10 score.
No.
As the winning score. I thought we did a pretty decent job. We just thought Ohio State was better, but I feel like we weren't like discrediting Indiana coming into the game. But if they were going to win, I'd say, like, if Indiana wins, what's the score? I'd say like like 35-31.
Yeah,
Something like that.
shootout.
You're gonna, or even 20, at least 28, something to that effect. Because they were held in check as well too. And I honestly, the way it started, I thought it was going to be a bit of a blowout because that first hit, and not that he, I was hoping it's like just come back in the game because you don't want that way to, you don't want to win with that. But just that level of physicality, I thought was maybe going to, kind of flip the script for Ohio State and let them, not blow them out, but just be like, oh, they just can't hang with them that way, and they win by 10 points or something like that, and just kind of dominating physically all game. But there was a lot of accolades for saying all year and saying like, oh, this guy's amazing and Heisman, all that stuff. Like he had an awful game, and in some cases like they showed the wide shot of the field and there's receivers open.
Yeah,
he's just not throwing like, and I'm like, I know just from team I follow, a lot of crap about like players, quarterback holding the ball too long. I hope that same conversation is had with this guy because it's like there was people open. Get rid of the damn ball. Yeah. And it's not like they have a bad offensive line. Ohio State, who said this year that they've struggled to protect the quarterback?
Yeah, nobody.
That hasn't been a conversation at all. Now, maybe if you get in the weeds in Columbus, they're in the state, I'm sure there's always, fans are like, we suck, because you just get too crazy with your expectation. And if you give up 1 sack, like, we need a new tackle.
Yeah.
It's just like the level of like what you think. But overall, they've actually, even defensive line, they've been strong on both lines for – that's why they've been good. Was because they have good linemen, and even on the other side, that freaking 92 was freaking wrecking shop. He was just wreaking havoc. Like he had a hell of a game. Like that's one person that, if anything, the shortcomings or issues that Ohio State had, it wasn't because of him, because he was a man among boys, and even Indiana's had some NFL caliber type of linemen come through it the last year or two just because of how they've played. Now, whether they materializes down the road and have a career, that's different because. I still think there's a system aspect to it, but your job is to win games, and he's doing that. So, good job there. And get the top seed. That's can't take that away. No matter what happens going forward, they were able to earn that number 1 seed, and that's for a school like that. They could never dream that. And
no,
that's but it does. Brings that conversation of like anybody can do it anywhere, but it's definitely a unique situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like you said, the way the game played is one of the more surprising things, just the way it happened, and then also the fact that what we thought and what we saw was the most consistent team throughout the season didn't have any of that in that game. They just looked like they could not put anything together to make like a drive happen. You talk about the talent that they have. We've gushed over the receivers that they have for so long, and it's not like they don't have the ability to make big plays, but you never saw that. Indiana took it away, and I think that's the most surprising thing. They made it more of a dogfight, and they won the dogfight, which is just surprising. I did not think Indiana's defense was that good. They just played, pretty much lights out throughout the day. And now, like you're saying, maybe that's a little bit too on the quarterback not doing his job also. But, they were there to make the plays. That was really surprising. And Mendoza, he's a winner. The guy's doing the right things. He makes plays at the right time. It's not like he didn't scorch the, field on fire by any means. You're only scoring 13 points, but when they needed a play, they made him. And that was the coolest thing I thought about how they did it. They needed to get in the end zone, found that way to make a nice back shoulder throw on that score, and then at the end, when you had to milk the clock, made the plays down the field to secure the game. That was impressive. So really a hell of a way for Indiana to get it done. And I think that's probably the most surprising thing from the talking heads around the country, I'm sure, is just the way that it played out for sure. The one thing I will say too about them in general, and I think this makes me, what makes me feel good about this situation as a fan in general of any team out there, because I think you're looking at two polar opposites. Like that's one of the reasons why I was kind of rooting for BYU to get it done, is because all we heard all offseason was how Texas Tech went out in the portal and, shopped and got all these guys and spent all this money to create this roster. And I mean, yeah, it worked. They found a way to put it together, and it worked, and they're a really good team. I'm not denying that by any means. They found a way to mesh them together and give McGuire, their head coach, a hell of a credit for, you know, making a team mesh out of that. But it's nice to see that it also can be done the other way. You know, you've got a bunch of guys that were just kind of cobbled together, brought from different places, and obviously coached up, and they have the right belief system going on there at Indiana. So you're seeing two different ways to skin the cat, so to speak, and I think that's at least good for college football fans to see that it is done, you know, a number of ways.
Yeah, it's not. There's no one size fits all, and also it's because it worked at one place doesn't mean it's going to work at another place. We saw all these coaches changing jobs, and you don't fault them. You get any career, you want advancement, you want more money. That's the whole. You don't work just for fun. Of course, in this, it's different in sports because there's, you know, also things along the way that you can kind of like point to, like this, you know, victories, and there's accolades like that and trophies and awards and all that. But as far as it's still about compensation and taking care of your family and that type of thing and all that. So you don't fault people for that part of it, but there's also, you know, just it's not a guarantee. So sometimes it's you think about it, it's like, well, yeah, it's a better, maybe better financial state, and you think it's a better opportunity, and you can, you know, really, you know, excel in this place, but it doesn't always work that way. So, I mean, I think the smartest thing that Indiana, or that maybe Cignetti did in Indiana, was probably, of course, they're not going to say no, was just extending him for that, you know, that long contract, because you don't know what's going to happen here if you try to move that system somewhere else. And there's still, as far as, you know, what I would look at it, their goal is, you know, and his goal is to win the whole thing, and that hasn't happened yet. So there's no guarantees of that either. And but you can't say it's like, oh, this is a failure if he doesn't, but it will be said. But he's still, you know, he's already over. Anything else is just like gravy to me, like anything you do. But that's not the, you know, that won't be the perspective, unfortunately. But it is. It's like he's done more than anybody. You know, even the great Lee Corso couldn't do what he's done. You know, his time in Indiana. So it's pretty amazing. But it's also, I guess, you know, we'll get into the coaching talk stuff later or whatever. But it's also it's not. Sometimes I think people do get a little bit of a false, I don't know, you want to say false perspective, or a false sense of what can really happen, because nobody's done that. So it doesn't mean that just because you do it once doesn't mean it can be done again. I think that's for some reason, like all these teams that are like trying to build a program and look at something and be like, well, he can do it. Well, he's one person done it. Just, I mean, how many people did what Nick Saban did? One. I mean, you know, like, or even like an Urban Meyer, like how many have done it at different schools like that? Like one guy.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's an anomaly.
Not on your favor.
It's going to be like the norm. Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I mean, it's obviously so incredible, because you're seeing those graphics thrown up last night, you know, and you're talking about a school that has lost the most games in the history of FBS football, and now they're talking about could win a national championship at a place that, of course, you know, 5 years ago you told somebody Indiana's going to have a better chance at winning a football championship than they are basketball. And they'd laugh in your face, because like that's not what we think, you know, it's not what we know, And yeah, it takes a certain situation and a certain person to change that narrative, and I'll give him credit. He found a way to do it. That's a hell of a run that they're on right now, for sure. And we'll see how far they can make it last year. I mean, they're certainly looking like they can do it. So, you know, who's gonna be the one to knock them off now? It'll be interesting to see how it plays down the road. But hell of a win for them, and we were obviously wrong on the pick, for sure. That does lead us into the playoff conversation as well. You mentioned, you know, that gets Indiana into that top spot, rightfully so. You know, and of course now we started to argue about, you know, who shouldn't be in these last few spots, and then splitting hairs between seeds and all that kind of stuff. And I got to thinking about that situation too last night, because, you know, what would it have been? Say we go back to the BCS system or whatever, where it's just two teams. Was the game last night the game that should have been the national championship? Or would a scenario played out, and this is my guess, is what would have happened, is Ohio State would have gotten left out of that game again. I mean, because in theory, you could really just say, well, that's the title game, play it again. But it probably would have been Georgia, Indiana. I mean, don't you think that's the way they would have done it back then?
Yeah, I mean, you would think so. Yeah, the I guess prohibitive like two best conferences.
Yeah.
And you get that, and man, it's not surprising, but it's just always is like, and it's annoying, and to the fact that unfortunately, I can't even watch like ESPN anymore at all. And it's like they show games, so it's like you have to peek over. But once it hits halftime or a commercial or any type of in between, you're like, okay, I'm just flipping off this because it's not. We know what we're going to hear, and just especially, I mean, I get you're paid by this company, and that's who you got to think for. But it's just the shield, like like no shame, just the company line, just repeat it over and over. And maybe I just caught him on a bad day or whatever, because like I said, I don't watch it that often, so maybe it was just trying to put the point across. But man, Reese Davis today was got just his like pompous attitude, just being like, well, this is why, and I'm like, just like, dude, how much extra of a bonus are you getting today for freaking kissing ass? Because that's all it sounds like. Like, it was just, and Herbstreit's gotten real bad too, especially for a Big Ten guy. I can't imagine. I hope the people in Columbus don't give him too many warm welcomes or free beers these days, because he's gotten just as bad as anybody for an SEC mark. So it shouldn't even be. That was the whole point of doing this, was like to not have to have these stupid little bitch fests. But it's almost like it's increased them to the opposite. And I mean, one of the teams that got screwed today, like, I'm not so mad that they did, because it's like, well, you do need to play the same game as everybody else. When you do your own thing, that's the result you're going to get. I think Richard Sherman said that one time. But as far as that plays out, but I also didn't want it benefited I guess the people that think they're pulling the strings in that one conference. So that's the downside of it too. It's just like a playoff means play off, like literally play it off, not freaking argue it off.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's funny is, like, we're even more riled up in splitting hairs and arguing about the teams that are at the end of this ranking of 12, whereas before, we were only doing 2 or 4. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, okay, I mean, who cares? I mean, yeah, somebody's going to be upset and somebody's going to get left out, but at the end of the day, like, is it really that big a deal? And is it really that big a difference? That's what gets me about those arguments, when you're talking about, like, you feel like it's just cut and dry. Like, this should just make sense to you. Well, no, I mean, I could have seen an argument for 3 of those teams, all that were in that conversation, like the Miami, Notre Dame, and then, of course, the Alabama thing. And then I think, honestly, even BYU. Yeah, they looked like crap the other day, but, who's to say
11 of 13 games?
Who's to say that Texas Tech isn't the best team? And if they are the best team, then you're going to look back and think, "Wow, shit, they only lost to the best team." I mean, that's the crazy part of it to me. But when it's in a different conference, well, I mean, Alabama they had to play another tough game. That shouldn't count against them. But if it's the other way, then they just didn't look good. I mean, why are we changing the rules depending on what game we're watching?
Well, and not to defend them, but I mean, the whole thing with Texas was getting smacked by Florida, but Alabama did the same thing with Florida State. Florida State, freaking, I know it was in week 1, but they still got whooped by a team that didn't even have a winning or didn't make a bowl game.
Exactly.
So it's but you're not going to be able to do it with just, I mean, the nature of how it's set up with so many teams. You can't play everybody. There's no way that you can really have like a true answer to the thing. And I don't even know that there's a way that you could really, like, I'm not saying like, oh, you got to play, you can't play every, it's not the NFL where you have 32 teams and you have divisions. Like, you can't do it that way. Like, so there's always going to be some gray area. It's just part of the thing. I just wish it'd be like, well, this team got in because we thought they were better. Like, to me, that seems to be of a more acceptable thing than just trying to, everybody, be like a politician and try to make their arguments and all, and this stance and that stance. Like, maybe they were better, maybe they weren't, but I mean, even in the NCAA, you expanded and there's still like the 69th and 70th team being like, oh, we got screwed. It's like, bro, like, how many teams do we need in here? So at some point, just like, you have to cut. you have to draw the line
Yeah.
somewhere.
Well, and I get people are gonna they're gonna whine too about the James Madison thing.
Yeah.
But you knew the rules. You knew the rules before it started. Like that's the way it was set up, and everybody agreed to that, and that is what it is. I mean, and I get the ACC thing too about how they're kind of upset being left out of the loop, so to speak, with the people that were in their title game. But you also can't have 5 losses and expect to get in the playoff. Like that's just not a thing either. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think the nice thing is when it came down to you're splitting hairs between a Miami and Notre Dame, and there was a game on the field, you have to lean that way. I mean, you just have to. That doesn't. There's no way that if Notre Dame got in and Miami didn't, that would just be to me like the most ridiculous thing because we have a point on the schedule that actually proved that out.
Yeah, I suppose that was my kind of whole thing to it. It's just like the hypothetical's got to go away. You just got to go with whatever facts you have. Mm-hmm. You just have to go with it.
Yeah, yeah.
It might not be fair to somebody, but there has to be a cut and dry thing because that's the whole point is trying to find the best on the field. And of course, like I said, it's not a perfect scenario. It's almost impossible to do with that many teams and that many conferences and all that thing. But you got to get as close as you can, and that's the whole point. And one team, they played each other, and one team won. You just can't be like, well, if we played again, I mean, maybe you would, maybe you'd lose worse.
Yeah,
There's no way of knowing.
Yep, we don't know. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and if you're gonna go by like who's looked better lately, kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, hell, I think Notre Dame's played great football lately, and do I think they deserve, and probably over Alabama the way they played the other day. So, yeah, I mean, whatever. Like you said, you got to get as close as you can with the what you have on the slate, and that's how you have to go with it.
I wonder with that team specifically, it's like you want to do your own thing, and this is the consequence of it.
Yep, yeah, you're not.
I mean, I just like it's hard to feel bad for someone that wants to get all the spoils and none of none of the bad side of it.
Yeah, well, and somebody could also make the argument in their situation, like you have more ability than anybody to go out and make a great schedule. They can do it. Nobody else can. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't feel bad for them. That's for sure. So the way it played out, of course, Indiana the 1 seed. The 2 is Ohio State, which rightfully so. I think that those two should be up there. Georgia's up as the 3. Texas Tech is the 4. They all get the first round byes, and I think nobody's arguing much about that situation. The 5-12 game is Oregon against James Madison. You've got the 9-8 Alabama and Oklahoma. You've got Ole Miss taking on Tulane in the 6-11 game, and then the 7-10 matchup is Texas A&M against Miami. That's how the bracket sets up. Interesting. Certainly, the way that this is set up is to create fun for us as fans to watch, and that I think Saban wasn't wrong when he went on his little rant the other day about that's drawn more attention to college football than anything. I think is because we have this playoff now, and it gets a lot more eyeballs on it and interest, and we should have some good games. Hopefully in the first round. I don't see any of these as being like something that I'm not gonna want to take in.
Yeah, and plus you have like a lot of these games. I mean, I know there's at least one, or two, I guess, but it's unique matchups that always makes things fun, or even just like stuff with like historical context. Like how many Cotton Bowls did Miami and A&M used to play in back when all the games were on January 1? The one thing that we're missing, and it's going to happen one year, but and I hope it's this year, is one of these 10, 11, or 9 seeds to kind of or even an 8 just to make like a little bit of a run there. Maybe not win it all, but maybe you win a couple games and then make things interesting, because that's what's always made the college version of the playoff, the bracket fun is you always get the little plucky guy. I know there's more teams, so and it's a little different in football, but it's got to happen at some point. Someone's going to make a run here and go. The biggest, other than like I guess whoever got left out, which I felt like if any of those teams got in, okay, whatever, and if they didn't, kind of whatever, the same thing. It's like you have an argument either way, as you mentioned before. It's like, yeah, you could see them getting in, but you can also see them staying home, and that's like the Miami, Notre Dame, Alabama, those 3 specifically. It's like, well, I can see it this way and I can see it that way, but I was glad that they kept Ohio State right there at number 2, and I don't even care about being the Big Ten. It's more the fact that I was curious of how far they would drop, and it was a close game, barely lost, but it's up anybody's guess as far as like the penalty for a loss at that point of the season. So because that's always been an argument since we kind of went this format was is it better to not play in your conference championship or better to play in it? And so at least in this instance, the conference championships didn't really hurt people too much, especially when you see Ohio State staying at 2, and that basically is flipping with Indiana, and then also Alabama still getting in despite getting, which I would have understood that one kind of being a penalty because of how the nature of the loss, but I do think it's, if you're gonna say whatever doesn't the quality of quality of the loss is whatever they term it, if it being in a big game and a conference title meaning something, then you can't also just be like, well, you should have just not been in it and you would have been a better seed or been in it at all. So I guess that's if you want, maybe one positive thing was that they took all those factors into account.
Well, ultimately, I think it certainly probably helped Alabama too that you beat the team that you lost to earlier in the season. I mean, that makes a difference. If it would have been they hadn't played them or they hadn't had a schedule at all, that was worth anything, and then they lose like that, then I think it's a different story. But that probably did help them out a little bit. I'm with you though. I think that, it ended up landing kind of the right way as far as the top of the seating is concerned. It is one little storyline that's interesting too. I think is the whole Jake Retzlaff thing. Gets kicked out of BYU, and now he's in the playoff with his team at Tulane, and BYU got left out of the conversation. That is a kind of a little interesting story, and good for him. I mean, you just end up in a weird situation, but you still end up, on a good team and having some fun. And that honestly, I think that could be a fun game too. That Tulane Ole Miss matchup is going to be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw in the Duke and Virginia deal, it's like just because you lost before doesn't mean it's a guarantee. So, and there's a lot has changed on both sides, but you figure Tulane's at least got more of at least a little bit more cohesion there as far as kind of Ole Miss getting they went through it and. Kind of feel bad for him in some instances, but that's the game you play when you have a coach like that. Cause he's it's not a secret. People know what he's all about.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll, of course, obviously dive more into this bracket as we move along here in the coming weeks and get ready for this playoff, and we'll have plenty more to say and, of course, make picks as we go throughout the whole thing, so that'll be a lot of fun. We look forward to that. We did want to touch on the coaching carousel here a little bit. Of course, you already mentioned, we've talked a little bit already about the Lane Kiffin situation. Obviously, that's a wait and see if that turns into anything for LSU or not. The big news this week, unfortunately, I guess I should probably hate BYU at this point now because it's kind of their fault that they didn't let their coach go. And now,
or about 12 other schools. So
12 other schools.
You probably have a little long list on your wall there for people to make plays against next season.
Why didn't Matt Rule get that call to begin with? God damn it!
Or even there'd be probably a few fans on that are for the same team I do that say they should have let him go at this point. So it flips real quick.
Yep, it does. It doesn't take long, does it? But the news, Matt Campbell ends up taking the Penn State job, so he has left. Of course, Iowa State fans have lived through this for a long time, and that's for good reason because the guy's done a good job, and people think highly of him. And he had a lot of these opportunities, and at the end of the day, I think the guy deserved the right to do whatever he wanted to do. He had earned that. He doesn't owe Iowa State anything. He's taken them to heights beyond whatever has ever occurred there before. This is the greatest 10-year run of the program, and he's left it in a better place. There still can be good things that happen in Ames. I think that's people lose sight of that in the moment, and I hope then that certainly is the case. But it is hard to lose a guy that you think highly of and you like, and you in many ways, not just because he wins. I think people like him as a person as well. Ultimately, the one thing that does hurt me a little bit is I think that he deserved better, and I don't think the school deserved him. Certainly the way that this search has played out wasn't real smooth. Obviously, they've got their skeletons in their closet from the past, and I don't know. To me, it's going to be an awfully hard place for him to do what they think he can do, and for anybody for that matter. I mean, we just saw James Franklin go through that same thing. You can win a lot at Penn State. You have a lot of resources there, but can you win national championships and be in that conversation consistently? I think is pretty damn hard. Just where they're located, who you're up against in the Ohio States and the Michigans of the world. Not saying it can't be done, and I'll root for him to do it, but I think it's tougher than people think.
I definitely agree with that, and the fact of not only is it already a more difficult job than a lot of people like allude to is the fact that if you don't win the whole damn thing, you're no good to them. I mean, and that's what their actions prove there. It's not like we're making anything up here.
Yeah.
They literally fired a guy who'd had a hell of a record.
Yeah.
But just couldn't kind of get over that last hump, and real close to even a few times. And so that's kind of the standard of the expectation. So going into that's already tough when you haven't had he did a great job there at Iowa State, but it's still a different level compared to the pressure that's with a job like this.
Yeah, for sure.
So and you haven't done it before, and now you're walking into basically, you better win everything or you're going to be on the next thing. And so before, it's like, I do still feel the same way. It's like, you can't fault somebody for like advancing, but there's been several other jobs that have come open and either turned down or didn't work out or whatever, where I could have been like, oh, that makes sense. This doesn't really make a lot of sense at this point. And also it's late in the game too. So you got to imagine probably some other other behind closed doors or whatever, or within this infrastructure type of things going on that he just couldn't operate in more in that in that space, and was just like, I got to do something different, or to the fact of being like, if I don't take one of these jobs, I'm never gonna know if I could have done something in a bigger quote unquote bigger program.
Yeah, well, and I think the Iowa State fans for a long time thought there's a few jobs in the Big Ten that would be really attractive to him.
When you wouldn't be pissed off, you'd be like, oh, I understand it.
Yeah, and that's kind of been one of them. I mean, Ohio State, Michigan obviously are the big ones, and any coach probably thinks about taking those kinds of jobs. I don't, not many they're going to say no. But and I think the thing that does have a little bit of a factor here too is this is like, State College is like 3 hours away from his hometown. Apparently his mom is very sick. She's battling cancer, so that it does have a factor of being closer to home. I think that is a real thing for him, unlike maybe some people that are a little bit different in life. But I think that's part of it too. Just where it's located, the resources that are at his availability now, I think probably tip the scale ultimately at the end of the day. Yeah, there's some other things I think that were maybe bugging him a little bit, names that he wanted to be a little bit different, but I don't think that was ultimately the thing that made him go. So I don't know. It'd be interesting. It does suck as far as like the timing and the calendar, and we're going to get into that in a different show because that's a whole other argument, and we got to make some changes there too, because this is crap for everybody involved, not just the kids and the coaches, but everybody, fans, players, whatever. There needs to be some things that change on that front. You sign a class one day and the next day you're going somewhere else. Like, how's that fair to anybody?
Well, this all happened fast, but there had to have been a little bit more of, obviously, it's not like they're just gonna, we want you hired. There's still a little bit of a process there, so it had to have been in the works for at least, minimum you'd think a week, if not longer. Yeah. Just because of the way everything plays out, there's a lot of red tape to cut through or whatever. And then, even Kansas State the coach freaking retires on signing day. Yeah. Because I guess the story goes that Colin Klein was getting on a plane to go to South Florida to take their job. Oh. And K-State calls him and says, we want you back. And he's, of course, alma mater, you're going to go there probably. And so then those type of stories is like, man, that's just it's always been a wild business. But with the timelines, as you mentioned, that it's crazy, and it affects more than just the coach, which it always has, but now it's like more of a direct effect than the indirectly type of thing. It's I gotta imagine it's still the deal where the coaching change, you're allowed that transfer immediately, but still it's like, now you got to start the recruiting process again, when I can imagine just at that point, you're like, I'm done with it. I just want to go play. Like, I don't want to be courted and travel around. And of course it's fun. Not that anybody's complaining about free trips and going to games and all that, but at some point you're just like, I'm done with this. I just want to get back to find some place I liked and play for it. And who knows, the coach comes in, might not want you. Yeah, and that's the whole other thing. Play, like, you might not fit in there, so it's a whole deal. And of course, the wild swing of it too was that it took Penn State 54 days to find a coach. It took Iowa State 54 minutes to hire their next coach. Apparently, they knew it was coming. Jimmy Rogers comes over from the Washington State. He was previously at South Dakota State, where he was head coach and won a national championship there. Ironically, coached the
quarterback of the team that just played for the team across the state in his previous time. So it's just wild, yeah. But yeah, I mean, for those kids, like, I mean, as a fan, you're going through it, but as a player sitting in that locker room, I can't imagine what you're feeling like not knowing the guy that you signed up to play for and you love, what he's doing, and then, you know, not even an hour later, you're like, oh, this guy's going to come coach you now. That's a deal. But part of me too says is like that's almost the best thing you could have done too, because now they can decide if they like this guy and they're not sitting around in the lurch thinking about, well, what do I do next? I don't know what's going to happen here. Now you know, make your decision. It all sucks, but I think at least they maybe did the right thing in expediting that part of it.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a little bit of dishonesty in these situations, just because the fact that you can't let this, not only you can't let the info get out, but like, what if it's like, I'm going, and then they pull the offer, or as the coach, you know, or something falls through and
you don't like it anymore.
You don't like something in the contract when you get it. Mm-hmm. So you can't be like, oh, I'm leaving. And like, oh, never mind, I'm not, you know, or maybe you're one of those guys that lies on the resume. We've even seen that happen before with certain coaches. So I mean, there's all type of stuff that can happen. So you can't just, even when you're just like, let's say you're just, you know, regular guy working a office job and you find something better and you get the offer, but you don't say anything until you're like, you know, you're mm-hmm. officially official. So it's the same thing, just at a bigger scale. You can't say too much, because what if it ends up like, oh, this didn't work out, or you change your mind at the last minute, or somebody else does, or mm-hmm. whatever the case is. So that's the hard part of it, because I do think there's some integrity still left in, you know, whatever coaching, mm-hmm. but I mean, because we don't hear about all that side of it, but you still have to, you got to protect yourself.
Yeah.
You can't just, you know, you can't fall on the sword just because it's like because these schools they're not going to feel sorry for you if, you know, it goes on the wayside and you have a couple seasons and it's, oh, sorry, see you later. I mean, you'll get your money, but other than that, they're not going to do anything to protect, you know, your career or anything like that.
No, they don't care about you. And of course, this is a weird situation too, where you've got, you know, tens of people that are watching your every move everywhere across the country and are constantly reporting on it too. So it's like pretty hard to keep it under wraps. I mean, that's not the world we live in anymore. So I think that part
news too, it's like it may not, somebody's trying to sell another narrative.
Yeah, so they're just pushing it. Yeah,
that's not even true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and sometimes it comes from the school themselves because they're just trying to play a game. So yeah, that's hard, and a lot of people I think were getting upset about that part of it too. And I just don't believe for one second that was ever Matt Campbell's intention, was to be like, oh, I'm going to leave my guys in the dark intentionally. You know, like it's not the way it played. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, obviously, what happens and how it plays out for him. You know, what happens for Iowa State next? Can they take that torch and make it, you know, continue at least at the level that he has it at now? You know, it'll be interesting. There's a lot of factors there, and of course, you know, who plays where and all that stuff is coming. Now we've got two schools in the Big 12 that have both announced that they're not going to play in their bowl game. Iowa State including being one of them, which is a whole other deal that we can probably get into again on the next one. But to me, man, that's a big FU to a lot of people and to your fan base too, because we all know, like, Midwest teams, Iowa State, Nebraska, like those fan bases, they'll travel. They're going to go have fun at a bowl game, no matter what the situation is. And they would have done so in this case. And now you just told them, we don't really feel like it because things aren't great right now.
I mean, there's a lot of people I know, and just, you know, you hear about, it's like that's kind of their holiday vacation is going to a bowl game. Mm-hmm. That's their you know, I mean, of course they can do something else. It's not like, oh, I feel bad for them, but still, it's like a traditional thing and a way to kind of keep people. You want this money to pay your players. That's a way to keep that coming in and to keep keep those funds coming in the front door there. So and it's just like players sign up to play. Like that's what they want to play.
Yeah, there's got to be enough guys on that team that want to play.
You might not have your full roster, but there's enough there. And I also, you know, I don't know how official this was, or if it'll stick, but I've seen, you know, reports of a, you know, $500,000 fine for the schools for not playing because it's in the bylaws of the conference. Yeah,
and it should be. I mean, why not? You got to fulfill those. You know, you have those slots that you beg for these bowls to have you like fill each year because you want these premier locations or whatever it may be, and then you just say, I'm not going to do it. You should be fine. I mean, why not go make money than lose money? I guess that's my opinion. And the fact that, too, I think it probably chaps people's ass a little bit even more that these guys are making money now. And now they're going to say that they don't want to play? Like, I mean, there's a lot of people who gave them money to play. Like, that's the whole point of this. So, yeah, and that's I think that also goes into that whole how are we going to restructure this, or what are going to be some rules put in place to have to live up to a contract or something, so to speak. And that's going to be part of it is participation in postseason play that becomes a factor in this too, because this is getting weirder by the minute.
Yeah, I mean it's all it's I mean, it's like unfortunately it's like a what do you want to call it, like trial by fire type of thing. Just I mean okay, now we got this figured out, like oh no, we're going to do something else, and then you change this date or that date, or these coaching. I mean, to go back to the anomaly, it's like okay, it's different, but man, this year of like the coaching cycle is just like is wild. Oh, yeah. Like you don't think like oh this probably, but we don't until it doesn't happen next year. It's like maybe this is going to be the way it goes. I mean, you can't imagine that many jobs, but as far as like just people flipping last minute and that type of thing, I think that could be more of like a standard thing, because these contracts, it's almost like they've found there's always lawyers and all that thing, but it's almost like they found like I don't know, some type of, I don't even want to call it loophole, because those are so lawyers comb through those things, but it just seems like there's more of a way around it with these buyouts and all. We saw like Brian Kelly going back and forth and all these things. It's just it's an interesting world that's being kind of created a day by, it changes by the day, as you said.
Yeah. Well, and seeing guys get fired so early in seasons and stuff, like it's never been a case before. So it's definitely weird. We'll see where it goes. I'm to the point as a fan for sure that there needs to be some things in place that make this make more sense for everybody involved. It's not just because I think there needs to be like rules, so to speak. Yeah. It's just because there needs to be some normalcy. Like people need to be able to live their life, like know what they're expecting, know what they're agreeing to, and go do it. Like it's just right now it's just so chaotic that I don't know how, as a young kid, I don't know how you go through that, emotionally. And be invested, and then we're pissed at them when they're flipping, and going somewhere day by day. So like, you got to make it work both ways a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta, you can't say it's good for someone to take advantage of the system and not for somebody else. So if you leave it open to interpretation, people are gonna push that envelope.
For sure. Well, we've got plenty more. We'll expand on those topics here moving forward for sure. Lots of that fodder, and I'm sure that's going to carry over for a long time into the offseason as well, but we'll look forward to that. But we do have some fun games coming up. Of course, we'll find out all the bowl selections, too, here by the end of the day and talk about some of those matchups as we move forward, so that'll be a good time as well. So make sure you're staying locked in with us. We'd love it if you'd like, subscribe, get the notifications for the podcast wherever you may find it, and including our host at Spotify, but every platform you love to use, just search our name, you'll find it. And then if you would like, subscribe, get the notifications on the YouTube channel for our weekly picks, videos throughout the year, whatever sport may be. And then also, if you would, of course, then follow us on Twitter. At SJMBets, at Cherokee CP. Those are the handles there. We'd love your feedback and interaction there. And, of course, we share our picks and information out on that platform as well. We'll have plenty more to talk about moving forward. And, of course, then we'll get into basketball season as well. My Clones put a hurting on number 1 on the road, so I did like that the other day as well. It made us feel a little better after a really rough Friday. It was a good Saturday. You got a big one today, SJ. So
yeah, I mean, supposedly we've been pretty consistently beating those chumps. So hopefully that continues. Yeah. And it's supposed at basketball school, but yeah, got to do the job, got to get it done today. So I'm fairly confident, but and you never know with these rival games, even when you're much better than the other team, sometimes it just how it goes, like play their ass off or whatever. But yeah, I mean, too, you might want to look at some futures there and take Iowa State to at least win the conference minimum, but maybe even look what you can get for the Final Four type of deal or something, because they've had a serious schedule and they've been blowing people out.
Yeah, they're playing really well right now. That's for sure. It's pretty wild. Be interesting to follow for sure. All right, that's going to do it for us this week. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another round of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.